Welcome to the new section. Inside this section, we're going to explore on how to react to the events inside an React UI application. In the same process, we're also going to explore React hooks, which is the core concept of the React library. By the end of this section, we're going to build this search and sort by functionalities inside the homepage of our e-commerce application. I'm going to build this search and sort by as two different components. Once the UI of these components is built, we're also going to add some business logic and what should happen based upon the actions performed by the end user. Since we are into the new section, I'm going to create a new folder inside my workspace. The folder name will be section 8, followed by I'll try to copy the UI application project from section 7 into section 8. Let me try to open this project inside Visual Studio Code. Under the components folder, I'm going to create a new file with the name searchbox.jsx. I want to build this search functionality as a separate component because this is going to give me a flexibility of using the very similar kind of search feature in any of the page inside my application. That's a whole intention of developing each functionality as a component inside React applications. The same we are trying to follow here. Let me create a functional component by typing RFC shortcut. This is my empty React component. We're going to enhance this step by step. First, let me add some input parameters to my component. Anyone who is trying to use my component search box, they should make sure they are sending certain input parameters. All such input parameters I can accept with the help of props. Instead of props, I can also perform destructuring for better code readability. Inside curly brace, I'm going to mention the very first parameter as label. Using the label input parameter, inside my component, I'm going to display this label. So as of now, I'm displaying this search, but I'm giving the flexibility to the invokers of my component. You decide what label my component should display. Accordingly, the same value is going to be displayed in the UI application. Followed by my component, it is also going to accept placeholder input parameter. Using this placeholder, we're going to display this default placeholder value, which gives an hint to the end user what action the user can perform. As of now here, we're having a placeholder with the name search products with the 3 dots. But as soon as the end user start typing some value, the placeholder will get disappear. The placeholder will only get displayed when the search box content is empty. After the placeholder, I'm going to accept value input parameter. The purpose of this value input parameter is whatever the end user is trying to type inside the search box, the same needs to be displayed back again in the search box. If someone is typing K and if I'm not showing that immediately inside my search box, it is not going to make sense. That's why whatever the end user is typing, the same value I want to display, I can achieve the same by using this value input parameter. Next, I'm going to update my JSX code. So let me mention parentheses because I want to write my JSX code over multiple lines. So first, I want to create a div element. To this div element, I want to assign some Tailwind CSS classes. So the classes are flex because I want to display my div as flex followed by item center with a gap of 3, padding left of 4, and flex-1. With the help of flex-1, I'm trying to display only a single element under my flex. And last, I have defined font primary. With the help of this font primary, I'm going to use this font family. Inside this div, first I want to write the logic to display the label. Let me type label, and to this label, I can provide some CSS styling. Before that, let me delete this HTML fur because I don't need that. Followed by, I'm going to type class name. To this class name, I'm trying to pass utility classes like text large, font semi-bold, and text primary. The value to this label can be populated with the help of this label input parameter. So let me type curly braces because we want to build a JavaScript expression which is going to evaluate this label variable and display the content in the UI application. After the label, I'm going to create an input element of type text. After the type, I'm also going to create a class name which is going to help me to beautify my input element. So these are all the utility classes that I'm trying to use. Please get these utility classes from the GitHub repo. I'm not trying to type all these utility classes one by one just to save some time. And most of the utility classes you are already comfortable. That's why I'm not trying to explain the purpose of each and every utility class. In case if you have some doubt, you can hover on the utility class and it is going to give some hint around what is the behind the scenes vanilla CS that is going to be used by the browser. If you still have some doubt, don't worry, you can always take help from web to understand more details about a specific CSS class. After the class name, I'm going to invoke placeholder. To this placeholder, we're going to pass the variable that we have received with the name placeholder. The same I'm trying to achieve with the help of these curly braces. After the placeholder, I also want to invoke value. To this value, we're going to pass the value input parameter that we have received. So value, placeholder, type, these are all the native elements supported by the HTML input element. The same we are trying to use here. Just like a search box component, I'm going to develop one more component. Let me create a new file under the components folder with the name dropdown.jsx. First, let me create the functional component, followed by inside this component also, first I'm going to define some input parameters. The very first parameter is label. Because using this component, we also want to display some label. Here I'm trying to display a label called sort by, but this can be changed and it is going to be completely controlled with the help of these input variables. After label, the next variable I'm going to accept is options. We know each of the dropdown, they are going to have some options. The same I'm trying to accept as input parameter to this component. After the options, the next parameter I'm going to accept is selected value. So this parameter is going to convey what is the current selected value by the end user inside my dropdown component. After defining these three input parameters, I'm going to create a div element inside my JSX code, and to this div, I'm going to assign Tailwind utility classes with the name flex, item center, gap-2, justify end, padding right 12, flex-1, and font primary. First, as usual, I need to create the label element, followed by to this label, I'm going to assign some utility classes with the name text large, font semi-bold, and text primary. And inside this label element, we're going to display the label data by using the label input parameter. After the label, I'm going to create select element. Let me get rid of this name and ID because I don't need them. Followed by, I'm going to use class name. To this class name, I'm going to assign some utility classes. After the class name, I want to invoke value, and to this value, we're going to assign the data from the selected value input parameter. Once this select element is decorated and this value is populated, as a next step inside this select, we want to display all the available options. Let me write a JavaScript expression here. I'm going to iterate each of the elements present inside these options. That's why I'm trying to invoke options.map method. Using map method, I can define a function which is going to be invoked for each of the element that I have inside these options. Let me define an arrow function here. For now, it is going to have some empty body. And to this arrow function, we're going to pass two input parameters. The first input variable name is going to be option, which represents the actual value at a specific index. After option, I'm going to mention the second input parameter as index. This index represents what is the location of this option element inside these options array or options collection object. Now inside this body of this function, I'm going to create option HTML element. Let me press enter, and here under the value, I want to assign this option input parameter. If this option variable name is creating confusion to you, we can mention option val, which indicates value. So the same I can try to assign here to the value parameter with the help of these curly braces. Apart from value, I also want to display the key for each of my option element inside the dropdown. Without key, we know what is going to happen in the React. The React library will try to re-render every time, which is going to create some performance issues. That's why I'm trying to mention index as a value to the key. After assigning these key and value, we should also try to mention what is the actual value that end user should see on the UI. The same we can try to mention with the help of this curly brace. Here inside the curly brace, I'm going to mention option val. With this setup, we're trying to build this drop down. So these are all the values that my end user is going to see on the UI. When the end user selected any of this option value, it is going to be assigned to this value attribute. In our code, we're trying to follow both these option value that we are trying to display and the value that we are trying to assign. They both are always going to be the same. With this, I'm assuming we successfully built two different components supporting the search functionality and the drop-down functionality. Let's try to integrate them into the home page from the next lecture.